Clark, we got the countdown clock. Okay, welcome everybody to Reporters Investors Discovery Day live stream, February 26th, 2021. We got an exciting day for you today. We got three exciting companies. First one, of course, is RELA Medical. Some exciting news. We're going to get into for anybody that's new to our program. Our goal is to bring you those stocks which have that 10x to 100x upside potential. So these are companies going after multi-billion-dollar market opportunities. There's multiple catalysts in place to create that shareholder value, and they're at a key inflection point in their growth. We've seen a number of some significant winner stocks that are 10x, 20x. Even recently, we had one that was up 5,000%, 50x from its introduction at a nickel to 250 just recently. So we've had a bunch of winners, and we're going to find out for RELA Medical. It's a company we just recently introduced. This is going to be that next 10 bagger plus. So Clark, welcome to the program again. Welcome back, I should say.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So Clark, obviously the idea is our audience they want to know is can RELA be that 10 bagger? So you had some very exciting news this week with the airport, the COVID testing. Before we get into that, we do have a lot of new people. So just give us a snapshot. What does RELA Medical do?
Sure, happy to do so. RELA Medical, we're a medical technology development firm, and we specialize in what you can call diagnostic devices, point of care based diagnostic devices. So we're really looking at taking scientifically validated technologies, analyses, bringing them to point of care. So you're taking testing out of a lab and you're bringing it out into point of care. It's about generating data. It's about improving efficiencies, and that's really from a holistic sense what we do. We found ourselves now with the last year, we've been developing the last couple of years. We're developing a solution to track the adherence to medications, prescription medications. Huge problem, enormous market. It's something we haven't been talking about because the COVID stuff has been very hot, and we've obviously we have a finite amount of resources and time in a day, and we're moving that ahead very fast. But that's really what got us here is we have a full shop. Here we are. We're actually close to the Toronto airport. We got a 6,000 lab and office, 6,000 square feet lab and office facility here. We've had for a few years. We do all of our development on site and then with external contractors. And we're really focusing on technologies that are infinitely scalable, that provide data that will allow people to make better people in healthcare systems, governments, groups, corporations, better decisions about how they manage their healthcare, and put that data that we generate by providing these testing solutions to work and to use for their business.
Okay, so actually, we're going to get into we're going to get into audience questions, because that's what this is really about is the audience. So of course, we do have some fans of Superman already, so that, it's good for the stock.
It's a good thing.
And he's got a great question, which the first question I always ask, and is really strictly a pandemic play. Where does it fit after cases go down? So, first we're going to talk about the airport deal, which is, very, very important. But then I want to ask you about, hey, what else do you have? What else do you have? Mm-hmm. Because essentially you have a technology platform, which is, the other stuff to me is actually even more impressive. But I think what you're doing now with the infectious disease testing, that has infinite legs. So let's talk about this deal with the airport. This was just announced the other day. I know the stock was halted for like almost a whole day. So I guess it was pending the news. So tell us, what is this news all about? What does it mean?
Yeah, so we now have we've announced that we're deploying with Pearson Airport, which is the largest airport in Canada, not far from here, as they say, international airport. 50 million people per year traveling through that airport pre-COVID, and of course, like everywhere around the world, there's some issues there. You can't allow travel. You got to test. You got to screen, and the solutions that have been in the market the last little bit that we've all heard of. Some public companies have been, opportunistically adjusting themselves to that space. And the fact of the matter is, PCR testing doesn't scale to what you need to. And the airport and airports around the world need to build the infrastructure to test thousands of people a day, and do it on site. It's very difficult to build a system of travel and a business where people are getting on a plane together. You've got a couple hundred people on a plane for 6-7 hours or longer in cases. And if they have a test from 2 days earlier, it really doesn't matter. You really could be sitting there with the virus active in the plane. And so you see governments around the world, you see healthcare organizations saying, look, we don't want to let you get on a plane without having a negative test. And the other side doesn't want to let you get off a plane without you having a negative test. We happen to have a solution that, as we discussed before, has been proven in testing, instantly testing large amounts of people for infectious disease. We're now deploying that at the airport, and we're also the system that the other testing solutions and other infrastructure that's required to essentially have a lab in an airport, which is not a traditionally medical place, to have a system where you can manage high volume testing, test your employees, test the people that are traveling, get those results instantly, make sure those results are communicated to the government, whatever the reporting requirements are. And we're happy enough to play a role in doing that for to facilitate that system, make sure that things line up, make sure the data is safe, provide that back, and it's a very lucrative business for us. And it's something that we've already launched, we've already scaled, and now this is just the first announcement we've had with a big validator.
Okay, so before we get into the details of the contract, the upside revenue potential, can you just explain, the technology? How does it work just like in a nutshell? What do you do different than everybody else out there?
I can do it very quickly.
Why did the airport choose to go with what you're doing?
Absolutely. So I can do it very quickly. These tests here, that's an RDT. It's a lateral flow test. Operates just like a pregnancy test. You put a piece of biological matter, swab of the mouth, nasal passage, blood if you're doing antibodies or other tests. And this test, this static test, this very simple looking little test, you wait a prescribed amount of time, 8 minutes to 15 minutes, and this test is going to tell you whether or not you're negative or positive. And these tests, this is a COVID test, but there are many tests on the market just like this, virtually identical, same housing, same function for Ebola, malaria, listeria, all these type of things. The issue with a test like this, and I should have more here to show you, but they all look the same. They're all very similar. The issue is you're relying on humans to interpret the test, to conduct the test under duress, under stress. If you're thinking, we're talking about an airport which will be organized, you have people booking in, you know who they are, you know where they're from, you know where they live, you know they're citizens of whichever country they are, you've got their data. But you think of other places where you're testing, where you're doing mass testing, and you've got people PPE'd up, running these tests. You got to be careful that you're not cross-contaminating one biological sample from another. You're taking a nasal swab, you're putting on here, then you're sticking it down, and you're running a bunch of these, and they have to sit for a prescribed amount of time. They have to be checked for errors. You have to make sure you deposit the right amount of solution on it, all of these things. Because of all these things that come into play when you're doing this mass community-based screening or testing, they're prone to high error. And in the medical field, it's well respected or known that it's about 10%, 8 to 10%, which is like 1 of every 10 tests could have a problem because the person who's interpreting it may make a mistake. They may not deposit enough of a sample. They may have waited too long or too short of time to make their diagnosis of the test or interpret the test. And so you have these issues. What we have is our solution. This is the DELC reader. We have a software and a hardware solution. This DELC reader was developed originally to be deployed in the places around the world that suffer from brutal infectious disease, much worse than what we're talking about with COVID, much more infectious, much more fatal, and much more sensitive, obviously, when you're dealing, especially in these countries that do not have the infrastructure. This was developed to basically be the lab that wraps around whatever test you're doing in the field, and it provides that lab quality testing result. Reduce of errors. Reporting is done. You've got instant data capture. All these things, connectivity, cloud.
So Clark, so I think one of the unique things is that when the test goes into this device, then you have that connectivity, which sends that data to whoever needs to get it, and they're able to use that, because I mean they can track outbreaks of these diseases, they can track, who got the test. I mean, all this, which is, the most important thing. It's not so much a test, it's about who knows the results of the test.
100%.
That's really what. So this is basically.
So you're answering the question, Jack. You're answering the question. You say, why does the airport choose us? Why are we doing it? Because we've done it before. Because we have a mature solution. Because we are not an opportunistic adopter of, putting out a press release that we're going to try and adopt something that doesn't work to COVID to increase some investment interest or whatever. We're not. We're the bricks and mortar meat and potatoes company that has a technology that's proven, scientifically validated. We're financed, we're capitalized, we have the right people on board. We have a great track record for deployment, and that's why they're dealing with us. We've been a medical company, a diagnostic company for the last 5-6 years since the company was created. This is what we do. This is where we're rooted, and so we're a solution that they can trust. And I think that's shown by the engagement that we're talking about now.
Okay, so with that said, let's answer this question we have, which is the most important. So the details. How much? How much you're gonna make on this? And then follow up. What else?
Yeah, of course. So we can start. Obviously there are certain things that I can and can't say. As in the press release, this is this launch is actually the product of support from the federal government. Obviously, you can't be operating in an airport talking about medical testing without support from the municipal, provincial, and federal government, which we have, which is outlined in that PR. So you can see that this deployment is large. As I say, it's not just a matter of doing a test here or there. We are the platform that we're running the PCR testing on, that we're gathering the data on. So our deal is not a flash in the pan kind of plan. It is about scaling up, and it is about proving that this solution can provide the airport with something that is what I would say personally the only solution for getting travel back to what would resemble a natural course of business.
Yeah, they have to get it back. It's already people are getting it's.
So we're paid on a per test basis, and that's not just the tests that we run on our devices. It's the data, the test that's being done on our system. That's how our business model works. And the pricing depends on what all is included. Are they taking advantage of the device? Is it just the software? Is it the infrastructure? What are we doing? I can say that the more volume, the more money we make, of course, and that the expectation is, unless there's something that we're missing, it's going to be a while until you can get on a plane without a test. And the governments and the airports and these international airports around the world know this. They're very aware. These are businesses. They need to get people back to traveling. And for the cost of, with us, with a test, if you're running an RDT test, and these tests, obviously they're manufactured to be cheaply produced and available in bulk. You add this test, our system, and you can be testing passengers for less than $10 on a flight. This is a rounding error when you're talking about paying for a flight. It's a very, very low cost solution. And you got to remember the connectivity between airports allows for, if you have a device that can connect the data, you're only doing one test. So, we envision a situation where you're tested, you're at Pearson, you test negative there, you fly into New York, into LaGuardia, wherever you do, you get out and you go to a baseball game or you go to a basketball game. And if we get to a place with these infrastructures where they will recognize these tests, there's no reason that person can't use the same test they had at the airport on their phone to walk into the arena later on that day. The same thing goes for if you got a connecting flight, if you're flying out, you've got a negative test that is attached to your passport. It's attached by QR to your traveling, and you're flying into other places. Now that other airport knows that you're coming in clean. They don't have to test you again. They have that data. This is an infrastructure play. And Jack, you know, I hit this before with you, but I'll tell you, you got to drive it home. You got to really consider this. And it's sad in a lot of ways, but it is what the world that we're living in post-COVID. This is a 9/11 type event where after September 11th, the whole world changed, and especially us in North America here, in what our expectations are around sharing our data, around participating in enhanced screening procedures. And we're glad to do it because we don't want to get on a plane and have an issue. You know, we want to travel. We want to know we can take our family with us. We want to know that we don't have to worry about these things. This is where we are now. And the expectation of everyone, of the traveler, of the passenger, of the customer, of the employees of the airport, is that we are going to be safe by testing, and we are going to be okay with doing this and doing it as paying for it if it means we can get back to our normal life. And the guidance, which you can Google from the federal government, governments around the world, is this is not a flash in the pan. A vaccine is not a silver bullet, nor are we. There are no silver bullets. This is a change in infrastructure. We are positioning ourselves to be what we believe will be the standard, or part of the standard of how this is going to work in the future. And we'll be testing for influenza A and B and H1N1 and COVID-20 and COVID-21 as it comes. This is an infrastructure play. It's not a COVID play.
By the way, also, so we got an interesting comment here that the developers. So this was developed. Your technology was developed pre-COVID for infectious outbreaks. You had malaria, Ebola. I mean, everything.
That's right.
So this is something. Once I think, look, once this gets into airports, they're gonna keep using this. I mean, this is gonna be something like a technology they're gonna want to keep around. It's something which is once it becomes like a standard, it's.
Look, once you have that infrastructure, the cost actually, especially because we're already scalable, the cost is we'll give you the device. You leave the device in the airport. We want to charge per test. When you use it, we get charged. So we're happy to provide that infrastructure to you. And as I say, when these things look, let's talk about the media. Come on, let's be real here and think about how the media has handled prior viruses blowing across the ocean and other issues. It's a frenzy, right? It's a pay-per-click business, no different than we're dealing with here, Jack, is that you want to drive as many eyeballs as you can. They did it with H1N1 and there was hysteria. They did it with SARS and swine flu and all these different things. Every time, Ebola, whether or not it's true or not, they really whip everybody up into a frenzy. People go to their Costco's and they buy their toilet paper, they go crazy. What do you think it's going to be like when we get through COVID? What do you think it's going to be like when CNN or Fox News or whomever it is that's covering it, and we get a little blip of another disease, another virus, something else that's coming? What do you think is going to happen? It's going to be an all-out panic. And everybody knows this is going to be the case. The governments now are saying it, and they're saying, you need to build infrastructure, schools, governments, airports, arenas. You need to build infrastructure. This is the future, right?
It's interesting.
The WHO says it. It's the future. This is an infrastructure play.
It's actually this makes a lot of sense because essentially, I think for the next outbreak, whatever, there's always something around the corner, right? And we've seen this every couple of years, right? It's almost increasing. It's an increasing pace of disease. I think for the next one, it's going to be like. You touched on it. It's going to be insane panic because people have already been conditioned with this COVID thing. For the next thing, whatever it's going to be, they're going to even be more scared. So
it won't matter what the evidence is. And that's the thing. I mean, COVID, there's a lot of people. I mean, even now there's misinformation. There are people that we deal with it every day. You read about it every day. People don't believe it is what it is. I mean, we deal in the medical community. We had, I'm not going to speak out of turn, and I almost did, but I will tell you, we have somebody very close to the company who we were basically, we had expected we're not going to make it. They had a miraculous recovery there in Europe. This is real. This is real. You want to be tested. If it costs you $5 or $10 extra on your cruise ship fee, or your ticket, or your airport, or whatever it is, you want to pay it. You want to know that you're going to be safe. And just as I was talking with you before, antibody tests will be the next thing. After a vaccine is actually deployed and it is scaled, we're going to need to know that people have actually had it. If we're going to allow them back in, we're going to allow a normal course of business. There's going to need to be reporting. There's going to need to be testing. The world's a big place. And as long as there are people coming off planes from other areas that we don't know whether or not they've been vaccinated, we still have a problem of variants of COVID or these things coming in. Testing is not going anywhere. Screening, testing, and infrastructure for infectious disease and healthcare, connected healthcare like this is the future. It's why the market's telling you that.
I tell you, it's interesting, yeah, because this is something that people kind of really need to understand. We have a comment here. I just want to pull this up. Where is this? Okay, I think we touched on before was that, again, this is going to become kind of like infrastructure or standard thing, because they realize that in this infectious disease can really shut down an economy, shuts down everything, and so they're going to want.
We're living it now.
Essentially, you're going to be like a piece of infrastructure for airports, almost like, I don't know, electricity or whatever. I mean, not
like a defibrillator on the wall in a hockey arena. You're going to need to have systems in place. This is not a temporary situation, and we're going to need to be set up for the future. We can't survive. Big part of this is getting everybody back to work. A big part of this is the mental health of people not being able to work and socialize. I personally, from being as close to this as I am, we haven't even begun to experience the consequences on mental health and what's happened. We have to get the country, our citizens, our businesses back to work. The only way we do that is with screening, effective screening, continual screening, a deployment of a vaccination, and making sure we have the systems in place for the future, because this won't be the only time this happens.
Okay, Clark, we have like about 6 minutes left here. So let's wrap up very quickly. The details on how much can you make from this airport, and what other airports do you have in the pipeline to put your system in?
So I'll just share the general revenue model. General revenue model is we get paid per test. We provide the infrastructure to run these tests. Airports or large clients are not putting these systems together because they want to run a couple hundred tests a week. Look around the world. Look at the restrictions that are in place. You can't travel places unless you have a negative test. How are they going to do that? If they rely on a PCR, it's going to take 2 days, or you're going to be standing in a waiting area where you don't know if you're standing next to somebody else who already has it. So the numbers will come out. The other engagements that we have will come out. This is the beginning for us. As we announced in September, we just started going commercial. We started scaling. We just capitalized to do that. We just announced with one of the most conservative organizations, certainly one of the most conservative governments from a healthcare and regulatory perspective in the world, and we are working with the biggest airport. So stay tuned, keep watching. This is only the beginning, and our system is scalable in a very big way, and we expect that to come clear by what comes out.
Okay. Question here. Okay, so what is the relation between FIO, because they developed the technology, right? The FIO.
So originally, originally FIO did the African deployments, the South American deployments. We have a joint venture with them. We basically came in and wrapped our infrastructure around to rapidly adapt this system for COVID use, a system with doing that, and then help on the commercialization and the scale out. Obviously, there's a difference in business when you are launching and you're essentially backpacking or setting up pop-up labs in really difficult places to work in around the world from a healthcare perspective. In Canada, in the US, there are major regulatory requirements of operating as a medical device, of handling people's data, of scaling that out, of actually taking the device and running it like an assembly line where you can test over 100 people an hour on a device by running it through our assembly line, capturing that data, reporting it to the government. So our deal, as we've announced, is we started a joint venture together, of which we own 33 or something percent at present. We have a number of royalties on them that will come out in our financials. From a strategic and a competitive perspective, we don't disclose certain things around our pricing model. You can deduce what you will from our financials and from other announcements as they come out. But I can tell you that the engagement is strong. It's just the beginning of what we're doing, and it's a big part of Relay's portfolio and what we're going to commercialize this year and deliver on and build value on for our shareholders.
Okay. So I guess we got people saying, like, how come this has not hit the mainstream? Like, why has this not been like a,
So yesterday morning we were on Global News. The morning before CTV, we're out with the Star and the Globe here. These are articles and newspapers and stuff in Canada. I think there'll be more. You'll see. I mean, we've had it's been nonstop media. It's since this happened. So I think you'll see that there'll be much more. But if you Google Relay Medical and airport or COVID testing, you're going to come up with quite a few articles, and you're going to see some more media probably go viral next week. There's more developments. We'll be announcing when the testing commences. We'll be announcing when the contract concludes. We'll be announcing further deployments and partnerships, both here in Canada and the U.S. There's a lot happening. You got to remember these things. The COVID, the arrival of COVID is a new thing. The airport pre-COVID never thought about testing, actually doing medical testing inside an airport where you have 50 million people come through per annum of different countries, different backgrounds, different customs. There was never a thought about, okay, yeah, let's open up a lab in the airport. These are all very new things. So they don't have the licenses. The federal government doesn't know how to handle the data. There's all sorts of complexities. Now, thankfully, the system's moving in the right direction. The regulatory stuff is moving in the right direction. And that's why we're seeing, and we will see more news on commercialization, big scale out, and better testing methodologies for Canadian U.S. citizens.
Great question. When are we going to see this stuff reflected in the numbers?
Yeah, so I think I think it will happen pretty fast, and I think that like this is funded partially by the federal government, but it's we're not working for free. This is a very worthwhile engagement for us, and we've only really spoken to in public dissemination about what's happening in the next 90 days, not what happens after, and so you're going to have to stay tuned. Mum's the word. Just like with our halt, the airport wanted to go live on announcing. They're under pressure from the public, the media, the government. Everybody's under pressure to get solutions in order. They want to come out and show that they're addressing them, and that's why they're partnering with us to do it.
Okay, Clark, let's wrap up on one last thing. Is that Relay is much more than just this testing platform. Yeah, I mean, you have other core technologies. I mean, absolutely. I know that you have things that are in development. Can you kind of give us a snapshot of like what else do you have like in the pipeline besides the testing platform, and what's kind of what's the vision for Relay 2-3 years out? Because it seems like you're a device company, diagnostics company that goes beyond just one.
I'd love to. So really what got us here was the pharma track. We've been developing this medication adherence. I'm getting into the jargon, but essentially you've got 60 million Americans. They don't take their prescription medication. Somebody pays for it. It's the insurance companies, it's national healthcare organizations, it's whatever it is. And they want to know why does 50% of the company or the country not take their medication? Why are they getting sicker? Why are they going to the hospital? There is no data feedback when you go, Jack, I'm sure you've been to the doctor in the last, whatever, you're a healthy guy, but they prescribe you medication. Very rarely do you ever come back and talk to your doctor about, did you take it on time in full? Did you take it with food? Did you take it? Whatever. We've developed a system that monitors all that. There's no friction. It's live monitoring. It uses computer, machine learning, machine vision to identify the medications as they go in. We've got predictive AI behind it. It's scalable. It's sellable. It's affordable, and it's something that the insurance companies, the national healthcare groups, big pharma wants. They need data. It's all about data. It's all about bolting on additional services and understanding how people consume their medications, their pharmaceuticals, which is really at the core of who we are as a westernized civilization. Is that what are we doing with our drugs and why are we getting sicker? we developed a system. It's really hand in hand with what we're doing with FioNet.
It uses the same platform, right?
Basically, same backend, same machine learning. You're teaching a camera to interpret a test. You're teaching a camera to interpret your medications and to predict when you may or may not be taking them. This is actually one of the technologies here which has been deployed. We're actually doing studies back in February, March.
Let's see that. Can you show that again?
So it's you can see it on our website. So what this is this is essentially a station that allows you when people, when they take 5 or more prescription medications a day, which is, as I say, there's over 60 million Americans that do it. They bundle their medication. They take them multiple times a day, some with food, some without food. Some have to be done refrigerated. Some have to be done this way, that way. It's very tough to find a holistic management system where it's not an alarm system. It's not that their phone goes off every hour and reminds them they've got to take their blood pressure medication. It's about fitting in with their day-to-day, having no drag, and just recording how they're doing it, and gently predicting or reminding them how to take their medication better, and providing that feedback to the groups that can, the pharmaceutical companies, the national healthcare companies that can then maybe incentivize their users to take their medication properly, and then the insurance company has some benefit or whatever it is. Basically, we're looking at breaking that down. We had to really slow up on operations there because, of course, there was no trials, testing, or studies being done during COVID with sick people testing out new technologies. This is something that we are rapidly approaching commercialization, hopefully this year, and we'll have some disclosure around that. We'll have some major developments sooner rather. They're about data. We are about providing solutions that people want to participate in. We're not about breaking the system, making waves. We're about fitting solutions in, collecting that data, monetizing the data, monetizing the per use, and ultimately improving the experience for everyone. That's at the core of what we do, and we are going to apply our technologies to as many verticals as we can properly address and generate revenue in each of those verticals. We're showing that now. We have had a massively successful pivot in what happened with our business, with what we've done now with FioNet. You're going to see the validation there, and that's really going to prop up the next few things to come out from us on some of the other assets. And I can tell you, we had a decent we stuck around valuation wise for a couple of years, not a whole lot of trading, doing the hard work. We're now in the process, or we're now in the position to start communicating it. We are cashed up. We have the finances to execute on these things, and these are big ticket items that address very large markets. And I'll leave you with one more thing, just not to promote too much, but look at what's happened with connected medical technologies like this, with home medicine, with web medicine, with all these things.
This is the hottest thing right now.
Unbelievable. They've went exponentially since COVID. They grew insanely under H1N1. I think they bumped up by 300-400%. The Trump administration and the Trudeau administration both came out in early COVID days and said, look, we're going to introduce ways to subsidize the use of home medical care. This is what we do. We were built really for what happened this last year. It's reflecting in our share price now. You can see it based on the investors that we've had come in, and buckle up, because we're going to be advancing all of these things very aggressively in the near term here, and I think it's going to be entertaining and of major value to the shareholders and the guys that are supporting us.
Fantastic. So it seems like there's a lot of this is not a one-trick pony. This is even though this pony is a multi-billion-dollar pony, the airport testing infrastructure.
We got a stable of ponies. We've got a stable of ponies, and they are cashed up.
Stable of unicorns. I like the
stable of. That's it. Okay, I like. You know what? And I think you're. I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong, Jack. So we're going to have more disclosure on that. We're really focusing now on communications. We've got some great ad groups that are working with us. We're really going to tighten that up. We've been a little too techie. We've been a little bit of that science company for a couple of years. People can't just understand, it's very technical stuff. We are really drilling down to getting our messaging out there. And I think there's a tremendous amount of value people don't know about yet. And you're going to help us obviously demonstrate that with your hard-hitting questions and keeping us honest.
It's the audience, not my question.
That's good. They're relentless. They're relentless.
All right, Clark, thank you. We'll catch up with you on the next big news.
Thanks, Jack. That's wonderful. Have a great weekend, guys, and appreciate you tuning in.
Okay, let's get ready for shrooms. Okay, we got the super chat. Let's just get set up. Delic. Okay, here we go. Okay. Stand by. Okay, let's get Matt here. Matt.
How you doing, Jack?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
You sound very
hard to follow Superman, but doing okay.
Well, we get the Marvel theme. I changed the banner color of the banners. We got the red. I think when I pop the banners up, they also get like it looks like a comic book now, right? So we got
right. Well, you might as well have Superman then.
We get the comic theme happening here. So
exactly.
You better change your name for next time. Like who's the Spider-Man guy? The Spider-Man guy is who?
Peter Parker. So I'll come on as Peter Parker next time. So thanks.
Fantastic. Let's get just want to make sure we have here. Okay, here we go. So Matt, we're going to do the presentation today, right? We're going to do the slides.
Yeah, I have the slides.
Okay.
Of course, technical. I want to make sure I get this right because I've never done this on your platform. So I have the slides. I have the share button. Okay. I'm hoping that it works. I'm happy to walk everyone through it. So I think I bring up. I think I press share.
Press share, yeah.
Share screen.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Share screen. Oh. Great. It requires something to allow. Gotta love technical difficulties. There's something on.
This is the fun of live TV here.
Yeah. I think I need a password to unlock the thing. This is wonderful. Thank you, guys. Thank you for bearing with me.
Do you think you can do it now? Because really, I want to talk about the acquisition. You announced this acquisition yesterday.
We can just spend some time talking about the acquisition now, and then set up sharing for next week or the following.
Okay. Because the idea is like with the slides, I always like to have kind of like the slides. I always look at that. That's like the official company store. That's the official thing, and we see the whole thing laid out. That's
it is available on deliccorp.com. So we've just uploaded the entire deck up there. So if people want to look at it on deliccorp.com, it's all up there.
It doesn't have your voice though. It doesn't have you on the screen.
It doesn't have my voice, my sweet Peter Parker-like voice. So
yeah, that's I guess. So Matt, let's do this. We got do we have? I think we got a bunch of new people here. So real quick. Give us a snapshot of Delic, and then we'll jump right into the acquisition news and what else you have in the pipeline. So,
sure. So Delic is a ecosystem for psychedelic wellness. So, what is it? It's a platform that collects data that helps welcome people to the world of psychedelics as wellness. So we have a platform that gets a few 100,000 people a month coming to it, learning, discovering. We collect the data on what they're looking for and why, and then we use it to help bring products to market. So as of right now, we've acquired a chain of ketamine clinics. They have an incredible model that offers high quality care and access to people who might not have access to this. So that means both in underserved regions and utilizing insurance, so people can get psychedelic therapy without breaking their bank account. And so I think that.
So Matt, so the key thing here with this ketamine clinics, the psychedelic, basically, so one of the issues is right now the treatments, it's pretty expensive, right? To get it's a couple of grand if you don't have insurance.
Exactly. And there's a bunch of folks who are going out there
2,000.
pushing out this kind of 1% only model where they're going to big cities and they're charging big money and they're not taking insurance. And so what we're looking at, we bought this chain. They have an incredible team that's opened 27 clinics across the country in the last couple of years. They're really skilled at this. And they've managed to build a practice that does almost 2/3 of their business is insurance reimbursed. And so they're making it super accessible, because that means you come in and you don't pay $1 to get your psychedelic therapy. So we're working with them to open somewhere between 15 and 18 clinics in the next 24 months, being really aggressive, but the business is really incredible. It's about a $250,000 CapEx to open and maintain. And the top line of these businesses goes to about $1 million a year, with a margin of around 30%, like an actual profit margin around 30%.
So basically, you open up a clinic, you get your money back, and then some within a year.
Yep.
And of course, you could probably, I don't think you're gonna have to do too much. You could probably get, you can get loans. You don't need to do dilution to open these up, because it's a lot of it is kind of like bank financing, or whatever. There's probably other, instead of, so you could probably, it'll cost you almost nothing to open up a clinic, and you're basically making 300 grand per clinic per year.
Exactly. So it's a really substantial business, and we're offering people this access to psychedelic therapy in a way that's really doesn't break the bank and allows people. We think COVID has brought this incredible mental health crisis, right? You have tens of millions of people with anxiety, PTSD, and depression that didn't have it before. And, you look at current psychiatric medicine, and your efficacy rate is around 5%. So 5% of people get better every year. And when you look at psychedelic therapy, you're looking at 60-70% efficacy.
That's interesting. That's a big number. Okay, so 5%.
It's a 10x. It's a 10-bagger, as your guys like.
10-bagger. Okay, yeah. Well, actually, hold on a second. We're looking for the where's our slide? The 100 baggers. The 100 baggers. We're looking for the 100 bagger stocks. But for medical thing, it's a game changer. So basically, if somebody goes to like a doctor, they have, let's say, depression, right? So they get prescribed what do you call it?
Prozac or some other antidepressant.
And that's about how effective is the Prozac or these other things? Well,
so you have all of these different components. So you have both the actual efficacy of the substance itself. You have the side effects. Yeah, you have the lack of sexual motivation. You have the lack of awareness, happiness, joy. So what we like to say is that, we're creating a platform for people to actually get well rather than be hooked and addicted to a pharmaceutical substance. And that's
when they go for the ketamine treatment, is it a one-shot deal? How does it work?
So it works. It essentially works, just in layman's term, it's like a reset for your brain. So if your computer is malfunctioning, let's say we're on this and I went to the blue screen of death, what would I do? I'd reset my computer, set it back up again, and come back on. Now, that's the way that psychedelics work for the brain. They give you this, in terms of ketamine, it actually gives you this full dissociative effect, which allows your brain to stop spinning, circling in this place of depression, anxiety, PTSD, where you can't get out of. People talk about being in a dark hole. People talk about being stuck. These things are all part of the same default mode network, which keeps you stuck in this place of trauma and agony that you can't physically get out of, right? And these ketamine in this instance, but other psychedelics work as well. They actually pull you out, give you perspective. And so to answer your question, there are 6 treatments in a short succession that give your brain multiple resets, right? So you come in, you get this course of treatment, and then you get boosters every couple of months that help you stop from falling back into your old patterns. So it's the other part of this is very interesting is a clinic only needs about 100 patients a month to be super successful. So you're not talking about tens of thousands or millions of people. So like the business model itself is really, really sustainable. And if you're talking about, you know, you look at the Wall Street Journal and it says 30 million people have fallen into some form of depression, anxiety, or PTSD through COVID, that's a pretty huge addressable market, right? And you need 100 per clinic, and we're talking about having, you know, 18, 20 in the next 24 months. That's, you do the math, 2,000 people monthly. It's not a huge number of people. You know what I mean?
That's like
Exactly.
a couple of square blocks in a big city.
Exactly. And that's why we think it's a very, very realistic to do. And we believe we'll be able to do a ton more from there as we scale and have all of these wonderful people to help us build it even further.
Okay, so basically the ketamine, in other words, essentially it's like essentially like if somebody is depressed or they have some other problem, they're kind of in a forest. They have no perspective. They're kind of stuck in this like downward spiral, and the brain is just focused on this one thing. And the ketamine thing basically takes them out.
Yeah, it's exactly right. You people talk about that.
Life is pretty good.
Yeah, they get this it deplanes them from their space. You see the forest for the trees, as your metaphor goes. You get out and you get perspective, right? And so it's a disassociative drug, so it pulls you out from your default mode network, which is your higher functioning egocentric stuff, and you get to see, hey, I live in America. My life's pretty amazing, right? I
have first world problems.
Exactly, first world problems are the exact thing, but if you're in them, they're crushing. And people, you know, the suicide rates tripled this year. It's not a joke. It's real, and it's
no. I mean, you have people who have everything going for them that have
exactly. And you look at this business. The reason that insurance is starting to cover it is because they see the difference in cost between this kind of treatment and someone harming themselves, hurting themselves, destroying their lives, and the insurance still has to cover them, right? So it's just it makes economic sense as well. It's not just a feel-good thing. It is a really good economic move to cover people to change their mind for the better.
No, so yeah, at the end of the day, it's the economics drives the whole thing. So it's it's a win-win, for everybody. So that's just part of your model. So you're going to have these clinics rolled out in the next.
Yes, we'll have these clinics rolled out, and then the acquisition that we closed on yesterday.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What did you buy?
So we bought a company called CBDV. They are a lab up in Canada that has a psilocybin license. So they have a license to do work with psilocybin. So you're talking about an actual Health Canada license to do clinical work on psilocybin, which we think is incredibly interesting. The business is not only profitable, it's growing quick. It has a legacy business with a bunch of major companies in the cannabis and hemp space. So they work with Charlotte's Web, a large tobacco company that I think we cannot name, a bunch of other MSOs, related parties working on as an outsourced chief research officer. So what they do is they'll work with a company to do their deep scientific research outside of the company's confines, because they have licensure and a bunch of incredible scientists doing the work, right? So for us, it's all about team. Delic is all about team. So the team we brought in through this, one of the people sold his company to Aurora for $115 million, Anandia Labs. The other one, Dr. Marcus Rogan, the founder of CBDV, is a genius, really incredible scientist, and has some amazing ideas. And for us, we see this as a cash flowing, growing business that we're going to continue to scale and grow, but we also see this as a place to develop novel IP. So we have these incredible scientists, we have all of this equipment, and we have the license, and they've they have some really amazing ideas on how to find novel IP around the delivery and kind of how to give people great experiences utilizing psilocybin. Now, why is that so interesting? That's so interesting because in less than a year, Oregon is going to come online as a legal state, and IP is borderless. So rather than looking at creating IP, working through a 6-year process and trying to get it out through the FDA, we think there's a really strong model to create this beautiful IP around, let's say it's transdermal patches or vaporization. You know, there's a bunch of different things that are
different delivery. So basically, this lab is sort of, these guys are going to create different ways of delivering the psychedelic experience through different.
And then we will port it to, you know, we're looking at operations in Oregon, and the idea is to port the IP, because IP is borderless, down to a fully legal state, create these consumer packaged goods out of psilocybin products, then allow people to both buy them and then report on how they work. And if you look at a pharma company, for them to run a phase 3 clinical trial, if they have 10,000 people's data, that's $500 million worth of work for a pharma company. But for us to sell 10,000 units of a consumer packaged good and then get reporting data from those people is 6 months or a year, not even, right? So
so how does it work? They basically, they through like an app, they would say, hey,
yeah, exactly, through our platform, you know, back to the fact that we own the largest platform for psychedelic discovery in the world. That's how we bring back the data. So we sell the product, we bring back the data through our platform, and now we have a package that a small or medium-sized biotech company can buy from us. And we say, here is a potential new drug that you can take that has been almost completely de-risked because you've actually looked through its
a bunch of data,
feedback, product data, and you now have as much data as you would have after spending $150 to $400 million on FDA trials.
Okay,
so
okay.
you can start from third base.
Okay, so Matt, so I think I finally understand, you know, your vision here for this ecosystem. So you have this platform, you have this website that has the psychedelic like reviews. You know, it's sort of like what you were doing at High Times. You have the High Times of psychedelics. There you go. What's the website again? It's
called Reality Sandwich.
Reality. We should make a band. RealitySandwich.com.
Yep.
Crazy. Hang on a second. I'll do it.
And it's one of the top ranked on Google for discovery of psychedelics. So if you go on and Google things about DMT or mushrooms or how to grow your own, or, you know, some of these terms and interests in psychedelics, you will find Reality Sandwich. So we're drawing a large contingent of folks who are coming in to understand more about psychedelic wellness. So the idea is this will feed our clinic business, and this will feed the data back from our lab and IP development. So we think there's a really interesting pinwheel that we can build, and that's what we're here to do, is take these very interesting cash flowing, revenue positive businesses, grow and scale them, make people money now in psychedelics rather than in 5 or 7 years, and then have some really awesome, you know, 100-bagger opportunities. You look at the guys at GW just got bought for $7.5 billion, right? So if we can sell someone
psychedelics to me seems more, it's got more of a little more, it has a little more horsepower than cannabis for you know.
I think so too. I think that cannabis is one substance, and it is amazing. And I spent many years helping to legalize it at High Times and building that ecosystem and infrastructure and helping pave this trail. And what I think is really important is that those years of blazing the trail, of hacking out the jungle with machetes to get through, now makes it so that psychedelics have a much clearer road to travel. So rather than 18 years like it took me at High Times, it's been 2 years at Delic, and we're already at a place where one state is legal and California and Colorado are both in process for putting ballot initiatives on to allow psilocybin and maybe other plant medicines to be fully legal and sellable. So you're going to have state legal frameworks for deploying psychedelics. Now that creates an incredibly interesting business model. And we think with the platform, with the ecosystem, we have a leg up on everyone else doing it. And we have the ability to take our lab, create novel IP, spin it into these, take a borderless product, which is IP, which means you just take intellectual property, you put it into a manufacturing in the state where it's legal, you push it out, and then you have people record their information on our platform. And we now have incredibly valuable data about IP we own that we can market back to biotech discovery companies.
How much is that worth? Like, okay, so in other words, let's say, okay, so basically you have this, you develop this IP. For example, let's use an example. Your lab, the complex CBD, which is complex biotech discovery, the company you're buying. Okay, so they develop a technology for getting the psychedelic experience through. I don't know. I used the example of a patch, but let's say something else. Give me something a little more exciting, like.
Let's say another product that we've talked about is a
vape.
Yeah, a vape.
Okay, so in other words, I do a vape and I get an experience of, I don't know, like ayahuasca or something, or I don't know, ayahuasca. Maybe ayahuasca is like a hard.
Or maybe it's a shorter window. Maybe it's a 45-minute trip closer to maybe it's a quick onset, quick offset. Maybe there's, we're looking at some interesting stuff around quicker bioavailability and shorter offset.
People want, especially the millennials, they want instant gratification. They want in, out,
on your Snapchats and your TikToks and your whatever fun
60 seconds,
7 hours of tripping. You want 35 perfect minutes, and you're back at it, and you've altered your default mode network enough that you're out of your depression, anxiety, all of these things that psychedelics have been shown, proven to absolutely help. And this is, to me, the science is why this path is going so quickly, why states are coming online legally. It's because there is a tremendous amount of science, and because the substances have been available to test and try, unlike cannabis, which only has one place in the entire country, the University of Mississippi, and they grow like the worst weed I've ever seen in my entire life. So that's the only thing you can test.
Matt, let me ask you this. What do you call it? The idea of doing a fast trip, like, do you think that these guys could develop a technology to do like a 15-minute, 30-minute trip?
Yeah, I mean, this is part of why we completed this purchase. We think the team
a fast onset, in out, half hour, lunch break, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't recommend doing a lunch break trip to anyone. I would still recommend anyone who does this is intentional and deals with it in a way that is beneficial to their mental health. But I do think that there is the potential, utilizing our team and our lab, to really build some incredible novel IP. And where people are doing this in labs right now and trying to get it to market in 7 years with the FDA, we can have something at market next year, and we can collect a ton of data, and then we can sell that with the data, or partner with the data with a biotech company that wants to get it out there. And they now have a clear path, and it's been completely de-risked because you now have enough data to know where the trials will wind up.
Okay, so we got a question, which is funny. I just wanted to get this. Okay, so basically this pinwheel thing you mentioned. Okay, so you have the lab that develops this, the delivery system. Let's call it a vape. I'm just using that as a vape, the psychedelic experience. Now you license that. So no, they develop the IP, the IP, right? Mm-hmm. They license that to whatever stores in Oregon, whatever it is.
Yep.
They sell the vape, they sell the cookies, whatever,
Whatever it is. Exactly.
Then the people who buy it in the store in Oregon, they get, I guess they get some sort of incentive to go to your site, which is realitysandwich.com, and to put in their experience. So,
what we do is we say, hey, here is a discount code. I've done this in the cannabis world for years. You give QR codes and give backs, and you get their data, because people are always interested in how they can both interact with the brand and find out more. So we have one of the deepest websites in the world, 12,000 pieces of content around psychedelics. We create specialized content to go with the products. The people who are interested click or QR their way back to the site, and then we get consumer feedback on the experience, what it does for them, and how it lasts going forward. So you now have an incredibly deep layer of data on consumer experiences with psychedelics, and you can take that along with the novel IP and market it back to the biotech companies. Okay, so
this is great stuff. Okay, so where's the comment about the pinwheel? Where is this comment? How did this get? Okay, so the pinwheel concept. Okay, or the flywheel. Do you mean the flywheel? Is the flywheel they're calling it that? The flywheel, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think it's a virtuous cycle, right?
It's a virtuous cycle. Yeah, it's amazing.
For us, what we see is that the reason that we're differentiated is we have this key entry point for people to come in to learning about psychedelic wellness. So the site is one of the top destinations for learning about psychedelic wellness. Now we have clinics where people can go to get safe and effective psychedelic wellness in a way that is accessible to all, not stuck only to the 1%. And we have novel IP development that will funnel back to the recreational psychedelic market. And then that data will come back into the pinwheel and feed more data and information and help us make better decisions and know what people want and use that to resell it or license it or whatever kind of strategic deals we can do with biotech discovery companies.
This is what Amazon does. That's the Amazon business model. They sell a product, they get reviews, they see who's buying, they get the whole AI. So how much can you sell this data for? For example, to a biotech company. Let's say you have a piece of data with let's say 5,000 users. They've done this. What is that worth?
Well, you think about it, and you look at what the biotech companies spend on going through phased clinical trials. I can just say that Ebu sold to Canopy for hundreds of millions of dollars doing this with cannabis, right? So they took consumer data they did scientific research on cannabis, they released products, and they took this consumer data back and they sold themselves to Canopy for $400 million, right?
Wow. So this model has been done already.
It has been done before. I also think you look at biotech companies and they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on FDA, going through the regulatory hurdles. So having this data, meaning de-risking that hundreds of millions of dollars, what's that worth to you? If you were going to de-risk $300 million, that's got to be worth $30, $50 million. Or you just come in and you say you spend the money and we'll take 20% of the final thing. Yeah, we don't need the money today, but we'd love to have a couple billion when you sell it to someone.
Yeah, because the data, your data, basically, when you get this data, it doesn't really cost you anything. When you have this, it costs you nothing. So basically, let's say I'm trying to think. So let's say a drug development company, a biotech company, they say, hey, we want to get this thing. We'll give you 20% royalty on whatever the deal is, however the deal works.
The deal is, exactly.
But the deal could be worth, let's say, 25, 50 million plus. Whether it's front, whether it's the license, there's a different ways.
It could be worth way more if they, we take back end on it and we believe in it as strongly. That could be worth, once again, we just saw a $7.5 billion exit for Sativex. So they have two drugs, Epidiolex and Sativex for GW. That's two, and they're both just plant-derived sprays. They're not even that much. I know the folks behind the actual cannabis products. They were real weed that was extracted in Amsterdam in a similar model 15 years ago, right? People who were originators of the cannabis space took it, extracted it, and made it into a substance, and then ran through, a bunch of FDA trials. But I think the opportunity, the real thing here is that we're going to be at market, making revenue, making profit, we believe, and that allows us to be really, really a strong player in this space. And I think our team is just incredible. On the lab side, as I said, we brought in some real superstars. I got a text from my friend who was the CEO of Charlotte's Web, and he was like, "Wow, you guys picked up a superstar. Like, that was one of the smartest people I've ever met." And he had worked, Marcus, who runs the lab, had run outside research for Charlotte's Web for the last year and a half, 2 years, and done an incredible job. So I really think the opportunities are endless, but we have a really clear and focused path to what we're going to do. And we see, these couple of things are just really have some hockey stick growth in front of them. And as I said, the numbers are just based on really simple progression, and you don't need that many people. And we have hundreds of thousands of people coming to our site a month, and we need, a couple thousand to be in these clinics every month for it to be incredibly profitable. It's not a hard piece of math for people to do.
No, okay. So this is very interesting. Now, here's a question. We're going to jump. We're going to got a couple of questions coming in, which we want to get into. But first, what? Excuse me. How soon do you think you can have some sort of IP that could, go into or like, from this acquisition? When do you think you can have some sort of IP for delivery, whatever?
Yeah, I think we have a pathway to launching with the recreational market, or call it the rec medical market, because it will be. Oregon has a, the bill that passed is a medical mushroom bill, but similar to medical marijuana was in California before this. It allows for a state legal mushroom distribution sometime in early 2022, so a little less than a year, and we have a pathway to having novel IP that launches with the launch of the Oregon market.
Okay. Okay, so apparently I was mispronouncing. It's Oregon, not Oregon, as I call it. But so they're gonna have, I don't know.
Thanks for the mispronunciation. Yes.
So basically, that's gonna be coming up soon. Let's hear. Great question. Does the Canadian psilocybin license generate revenue today? How many other entities possess a similar license?
Yeah, so CBDV is on track to do about $1.2 million in revenue this year, profitable revenue, and there are less than a handful of these licenses in existence. So it is very desirable.
Okay, but I think, listen, this goes beyond just having a license. It goes into like, hey, you have a team that can develop. It's okay.
Exactly. We're not just a piece of paper. There's something really, there's a really incredible team. As I said, one of the other folks sold his business to Aurora for $115 million. So they really know what they're doing. Okay.
Okay. So we got a question here. CBDV and Haven have a psilocybin light. So how does what is the tie-in?
So CBDV has been working on the acquisition. Yep, exactly. So Haven is working through our license. So that is how they tie together. Haven has been utilizing the team at CBDV for their outsourced scientific research. As discussed, that is their business.
Okay. So whose license is it now? So it's your license.
It's our license. Yeah, we are purchasing that license. But as I said, the business here is the reason that it's so profitable is that it does outsource. CBDV does outsourced chief scientific research officer business. So it takes on science projects from large companies in the cannabis, hemp, and psilocybin space. And so that's where there's a huge amount of revenue and profit that we can derive from this. And then what the plan is to utilize the team to build our own in-house IP using the same equipment, team, and everything that other people are using. So it is a twofer. We have a business that is profitable that we then get to utilize to build this IP.
It's very interesting. It's really like it's like you call it the pinwheel. It's really like the Amazon model. They get people in. Selling books, but really they got the whole thing. So once they come in, it's an incredible virtuous cycle that you have. So this data this drug development data might be more valuable than everything else you have.
Look, what we think is that we have this really interesting opportunity to be a cash flow generating company in this psychedelic space where everyone else is making long-term promises, right? Where we can deliver actual results with some really great long-term promises. So that's the twofer that we want to deliver to people, is both a profitable and cash flow generating business that also has some incredible blue ocean in front of us.
Blue ocean, I like that. Yeah, the big score. So essentially, you have this kind of. I use this metaphor before, is like, you're buying this cattle ranch in Texas. And you got the cattle there, but really, the real asset is the billions of barrels of oil that's underneath the ground, which you might find. You just got to drill and a couple of drill. I don't know. So you might have one of these massive,
exactly.
Oil plants.
You might have a couple of giant gushers, and we know that we have an incredible real business that we are growing and is going to be, one of the best in the space. And we're going to be one of the largest ketamine clinic operators in the space and have, I think, the best lab in the space. And we have this overlay of an ecosystem that really collects data on people, right? Because we're learning what customers want with
this is the golden, this is the holy grail, basically, this data. Everybody wants data. It's like Amazon. Amazon is basically a data company, right?
Exactly.
They have your data.
They're a stealth data company. And that's, we think that we are a stealth data company in understanding, as people come across into the legal psychedelic wellness world, we have a place that people start off at. So that's, I think, a really interesting overlay, right? So for us, that was the reason we built this 2.5 years ago when we started the first psychedelic wellness corporation, my wife and I. We really were looking at, there is no such thing as a psychedelic business 2.5 years ago. So we said, what is there that we can do? We can build this ecosystem that, as this becomes a business, we have a front row seat, we collect all the data, and we know what people want. And that's why we've been going into we've been purchasing these businesses over the last couple of months, because we know people want these things.
No, this is great. Okay, so what's the terms of the acquisition? What's the deal there?
The deal is all stock. So it is, the shareholders of the company believe in Delic, which I think is really important. Our deals have been all stock, and it's a $7 million in stock with some milestones worth about $3 million over the next 2 years.
Okay, so basically, essentially 10x revenues you're paying for. That's the multiple on that.
Yeah, exactly. A little less
stock, so it's like, it's a good deal. It's not.
Yeah, and it's over. It's call it 6x revenue now, and then the rest over the next 2 years as we bulk up the revenue. So hopefully, it becomes less than that over the time of the deal. Okay.
No, it's a winning deal, because if these guys are doing $1 million revenues, right now, and it's in the psychedelic space, I have a real feeling that the pharma, the biotech industry is really, they're going to take the psychedelics in a much bigger way than they took with cannabis. I think it's something
100%. And there's more potential plays for it, and there's more interest. Like we think there's a really interesting pathway on microdosing, right? So microdosing, I don't know if you know this, but it's swept Silicon Valley. It's become kind of the ultimate performance enhancing drug, right? So people look at it as, you take this microdose of mushrooms and you're now happier, better, more sociable, more social, you think better. It's subperceptual. And we think that's a huge opportunity for a consumer packaged good in the, call it, medical legal markets, that then feeds back in the same way to interesting IP and delivery methods that you can push on to drug development.
So okay, so you're telling me that Silicon Valley, everybody's doing microdosing right now?
Yes, I am telling you that as the person from High Times and now from Delic, I know a lot of Silicon Valley folks who it is, they swear by it. It is, it's gotten to the point that a friend of mine sent me a picture of a fully packaged, beautifully done consumer packaged good that was from his wife's PTA meeting. So in Silicon Valley, his wife had gone to the PTA meeting, and one of the other mothers offered her a consumer packaged goods, like beautifully packaged microdosing product.
It's very California.
It's very California, but it also shows you that this is here, and it's gonna look. California is gonna jump on the bandwagon. I think Colorado is gonna jump on the bandwagon. And
it's interesting. This is interesting. I didn't know this. So basically, so you're telling me that all these guys, which essentially, the Silicon Valley, in a way, they're kind of that's sort of at the leading edge of the zeitgeist. So, kinds of so if these guys are doing microdosing, this work could be the start of a big wave.
It really, I think it is. We have a bunch of guides to microdosing on Reality Sandwich, and it's one of our top traffic drivers because people are looking. They hear about it. It's the buzz. It's the cool new thing, and they're like, what do we do? How do we do it? So we think, utilizing our lab to build some novel IP around it, to build a consumer packaged good in Oregon to deliver it, and then collecting more data on our guides on Reality Sandwich, then pulls together a really interesting data and business model. And we can actually make money selling it now, not wait 5 years for the FDA to approve it.
Okay, no, all the big trends, they all start in California. So Matt, now you're in Venice, right? You're in Venice Beach area. So
that's right.
Silicon Beach, they call it, right?
You call it Silicon Beach. It is very much a startup capital of the world right now.
And what is it? What's the guy? The what's his name? Guy? The Snapchat. I think he's
Evan Spiegel.
Yeah.
Right.
So are these guys? So is microdosing big in Silicon Beach also?
It is. It is a big part of the world, and the worldview is that and this comes back around to the biohacking movement.
Biohacking, yeah.
That's Jackie, my wife and co-founder, was one of the original employees at Bulletproof, which is the kind of grandfather of biohacking. They kind of built that into a mainstream phenomena, and that world and that health and wellness biohacking world really crosses over here at the microdose psychedelics, subperceptual doses to give you greater energy, mental acuity, less social anxiety. So it's really, I don't want to say it's a cure-all, but it certainly is. People swear by it. I will say that.
Okay. Just to explain, subperceptual, what does that mean?
That means that a microdose means you are taking a substance that at a perceptual level would alter your consciousness, but at a subperceptual level, it just gives you this benefit and boost. So it's taking mostly psilocybin or LSD are the two microdose favorites, and you take a dose that is below the minimum threshold for altering your consciousness, and it acts like a different drug. It doesn't act like a psychedelic where you see things differently or your brain changes or you have hallucinatory effects. You just get that. You get a better, happier, more energetic, less nervous, less anxiety kind of feeling.
It's like you're having it's like a buzz, a little buzz. You drink like a little bit. It's like a buzz. It's not, you're not drunk. You're just slight, nice buzz.
You're slightly altered in better, and unlike alcohol, you won't have a hangover or feel like your body has been wrung out and dry the next day, right? So it's. I think a lot of this comes from the health and wellness world because alcohol poisons your body a little bit, right? It's the commonly accepted alterant, but it actually, if you look at it physiologically, it hurts you. The reason that cannabis is legal now is a friend of mine went out with a campaign called "Marijuana is safer than alcohol," and it's true.
Yeah.
And you look
I don't think there's any drunk. I mean, in terms of drunk driving, kills thousands of people. Cannabis, I don't think. I mean,
exactly. And you look at the same argument is even more true when you look at psychedelics. You look at toxicity from psilocybin. It is zero toxicity. It actually fights its own addiction, because the more you do, the less it affects you. So it's one of those substances that I think has a really great use case for that. And I think microdosing is probably the largest opportunity, because if you're talking about people taking it in a supplement level, as a daily use, I think there's an incredible opportunity there. So there you go.
Okay, let's wrap up with a couple of questions.
Sure.
Okay, so you got the ketamine clinics, psychedelic clinics. Are these going to be startups, and those you're just opening, or are you going to?
No. The company we purchased or are closing on shortly has a chain of clinics in Arizona and California. So it is not a startup. It is a fully functioning, cash flow generating business that we are going to expand. The team there has opened 27 clinics in the last 4 years, all successful, all profitable, and really knows how to scale quickly. So that's why we bought this chain, because they're shovel ready. They have a bunch of clinics that are at the lease agreement stage that we're going to start building very shortly.
Okay, it's very interesting. So in other words, shovel ready means you have these, so you have leases on the desk basically for these.
Yeah, that we can go in, move quickly, and get open in a very short period of time. As I said, not a lot of CapEx. TI is done by the building, so it's all very, as you said, it's extremely financeable and not hard to do.
Okay, I mean, a clinic is basically, I mean, when you think that, it's just, it's not like anything crazy. It's not like a restaurant with,
No.
This is essentially a couple of rooms, right? A couple of rooms, a reception area, maybe some soundproofing or something. It's a little more, that's about it.
Yeah, exactly. Some nice chairs, a place for people to relax for an hour and a half while they do these.
I mean, you need marketing maybe to get people, that's part of the spend, is the investment.
Yeah, of course. Exactly. It's team, it's marketing, and it's a light build out. And that's why we think it's super, really beneficial to have partnered and purchased this group, because we believe strongly they have all of the pieces ready for us to scale to, 15, 18 more clinics in the next 2 years.
Okay. So with this acquisition right now, what's going to be the run rate you got between the clinics, between the research thing? What are you going to be run rate wise, by the time both of these deals wrap up?
I would say somewhere in the $3 million range, something like that.
Okay. And what where do you expect to exit 2021 with, are they good, as you expand more clinics? Is 21 the when you hit that kind of hockey stick, or is it the next year?
Yeah, I think it's about the end of 21. It all depends on how quickly the acquisitions close, because things take a minute, always take longer than you think. But I think we can be on trend to have 6 or 7 clinics open by the end of the year. And you do the math. That's $6 or $7 million run rate, and somewhere in the couple $1 million in profit, along with the lab business on a run rate of $1.5 million, $2 million by then. So we think we have a real shot to be on towards that $10 million run rate.
And that's basically year one. That's really kind of like your real kind of beta phase.
Exactly.
How many shares out fully diluted after the deals wrap up?
Well, I mean, it's all, everything's at time of close with VWAPs and all the fun stuff that you have in but somewhere in the 65 to 70 million shares outstanding.
Okay, so so basically you're trading at 4x, 5x next year's the end of this projected revenues for it. It's not a bad.
Exactly. No, it's not bad at all.
Nothing crazy. Okay. Let's see. Last thing, other acquisitions in the pipeline?
Yeah, obviously can't talk about them, but there's definitely a bunch of deals that are on our desk that we are heavily considering. It's just the deal flow is enormous. You know, there's a lot of things happening, and obviously, the team that we have, you know, has a really deep experience across these capital markets and in the cannabis space and the nascent psychedelic space. So we see, I think, just about everything. You will see some other stuff from us, and I promise we will come on here and talk about it as we close them, so that you get to tell your viewers about all the great stuff we're doing. So yes, there are other things behind it.
In terms of acquisitions, in terms of like, you know, knowing what's out there, what's available, you know, in terms of the network, because it's a relatively new business, it's a new industry, so to speak. So it's not like, you know, you have a database. But okay, so you published, you know, High Times magazine, you know, which is like the Bible of cannabis, basically, for, you know, a number of years, right? Is there a crossover? Are a lot of those people who you were in contact with, are they also involved in psychedelics? Like, how much of a crossover is there from that experience to psychedelics?
A pretty large amount. Both the currently public companies, I know a bunch of them from cannabis days, and a bunch of folks who have, in the last year and a half, have been looking at, you know, cannabis is consolidating down. It is, you know, you've got a bunch of champions emerging. It's been 5-6 years since the capital markets really started for it. And you see this consolidation and you know, large scale businesses that are starting to gobble everyone up. And what that does is it gives people liquidity and exits, and they start moving on to the next thing. So yes, I would say my network has definitely started playing in this space. And so I see a lot of things as they start coming from that, you know, the world of cannabis and successful entrepreneurs who have exited and then on to the new thing.
Okay. Let's wrap up. Last thing. You know, this is the question we famously ask at the end of every interview. Matt, in your opinion, top 3 reasons why investors, you know, should consider Delic right now.
Sure. I think number one is you have an opportunity to touch a broad swath of the psychedelic space through us. Number two, we're actually building a revenue generating, cash flow positive business, and not asking you to believe in long-term promises. And number 3, I think we've built an ecosystem. You can already see it developing. So rather than having a non-cohesive bunch of businesses that don't make a ton of sense together, we're building things that reinforce each other, so that there is an opportunity as one thing succeeds to help push the next thing, to help push the next thing, and then it, as you said, it comes back around again. So I think we've really started to show what we mean when we say we're building this psychedelic wellness and ecosystem. And that's where I think a lot of success and opportunity is coming. And the business of psychedelics is a multi-billion dollar business across multiple different business lines. And I think you're going to get exposure with us to a couple of them in a really meaningful way.
Matt, on that note, I want to thank you. Look forward to hearing more from Delic, you and Delic, in the coming weeks.
Thank you so much, Jack.
See you
Have a great
soon,
day.
Matt. You too.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Great developments at Delic. Things are shaping up. Let's get ready for our next potential 100-bagger here. Let me just pull this up for you. Okay, and Alex.
How are you, Jack?
Great. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. It's always fun to be on with you. on a day gold is down $50. So let's just
downright. Oh, I'm not. I'm not in front of.
Actually, I don't know what it is. I haven't looked for the last couple of hours, but
okay.
This morning.
I mean, it's interesting. Gold. It's one. It's funny. The thing with gold, it's I do sometimes these live streams that talk about charts. The whole. With gold, it's one of those weird things. It's I find it very hard to. It's a very kind of the big uptrend, but it does these crazy moves which don't make any sense, intra.
Yeah.
It shakes people out. I could see where it's going. I think it's going to 3,500, but in the meanwhile, it does these weird moves. I don't know.
Yeah. Extreme volatility is the order of the day. I mean, a $20, $30 swing doesn't even phase anybody anymore to the upside or the downside. But today, last couple of days, it's just been on a real, a dissension. So, ugliness in the markets today. The Dow's been off a couple days, but these are the days when you either get off your screen or for the more adventurous ones among us, we're buyers.
Okay, so Alex, let's get set up here. So I got the thing on the screen. Okay, do you have? I'm getting the sound. Is the sound coming from the mic? The thing?
I don't know. You want me to get rid of this thing?
Yeah, I think it's a little. I think it's. Let's try without it. Say something. I can't hear you now.
How about now?
Keep talking.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, much better, much better. I think so. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think 1,000 times better.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so let's see here. Okay, we got. Okay, welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's Discovery Day live stream, February 26, 2021. We're back with Cross River Ventures. Alex, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Alex, our goal here is to bring our audience those stocks which have that 100-bagger, 10-bagger, 100-bagger upside potential. This is kind of like our motto now. We've had a bunch of 10-baggers, and we had a 50-bagger recently, a stock that went from a nickel to $2.50. And we got to see if CRVC could do that. Now, CRVC has not been behaving well. It's been going in the opposite direction. So what's going on? Is probably everybody's asking, what's going on? Usually all these stocks go up.
You know what? Obviously, we like to think everything's sector related. It certainly has nothing to do with us. It's not like we put out bad news or anything. It's simply a macro situation. The price of gold has been struggling, and companies like Cross River get caught in the crossfire. So that's where we're at. And but like I said earlier, you can run from your screen today, or you can look for those that are getting hammered. And let's look at a big thing. And I'm not suggesting anything is similar, but after the 2008 crash, who was in buying? It was guys like Warren Buffett. They're in there when they see value, they'll go buy. And so
it's interesting right now. Like the stocks, mining stocks, especially like CRVC. I'm looking at the chart, right? And I don't want to make opinions. This is not. But to me, the stock looks kind of like it's at a base right here.
Yeah.
And we had, all of a sudden, I'm getting because I kind of follow sentiment. I'm really I'm embarrassed. I don't want to admit this, but I don't really look at the fundamentals too much. I look at the sentiment. I look at kind of, because to me, that's the thing that's interesting is where is the where are investors going? What's going to get investors excited? I'm starting to see all of a sudden these what do they call it, grass shoots? Remember that term, grass shoots? Yeah. I'm starting to see all of a sudden bargain hunters, people who are kind of they know what they're doing, starting to talk about CRVC. I've noticed on our message boards on our Discord channel, the guys who are pretty sharp are talking about CRVC. Yeah. So
I'm glad to hear that, because our story is amazing. I mean, when you look at the things that you need to look for in an exploration company in this space, we not only tick off the boxes, we're highlighting those boxes. So I'm happy to talk about those points here today with your audience.
Before we get into, because I want to talk about, you've had some new, you have the news, you got the Manitou project news, you got McVicker. For anybody that's new, give us a quick snapshot. What is CRVC all about? Tell us about the big project. Why is there upside here? In other words, Right now the market cap is, what's the market cap right now? It's like a couple $1 million.
Well, 37 million or 27 million out, and we're trading at 25 cents. So do the math.
So was that 5 million Canadian basically?
That range. Certainly can be much higher, and it will be. And why don't you bookmark that little clip and see if it comes back to haunt me or somebody else? Because I guarantee
the way I look at these,
we're gonna have a good conversation on this.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at these, at any companies, I look at it as, okay, you're making a bet. I mean, I'm looking at this as a whole company. You're buying I'm basically paying $5 million for a company. What's the upside? What's the percentage probability that they're going to get that upside? So what is this thing worth now? Like, I want to see, like, what's the worst case scenario? What's the worst case scenario here? What's the upside? What is so where you are now? What is the worst case scenario?
The worst case scenario is gold just becomes dust, and we're at $1,100 gold, and nobody wants to talk to you.
I don't believe that. That's off the table.
Okay, well, years ago, I remember knocking on brokers' doors, and you go knock, and you'd say, "Who is it?" And you go, "It's a gold." And before you even said the word gold deal, the door would, there's a lock going on the other side of the door. So I don't think we're going to see that. So that's the worst case scenario. The other part of it is, as an exploration company, that we come up empty, that we never find what we're after. But I have to discuss the mitigating factors in that where we're concerned. So we can.
So what's the big picture? What do you have? Tell us about all the projects.
Sure. We're in northwestern Ontario, one of the greatest places on the planet. In fact, probably the best place on the planet to find large economic gold deposits. It's a friendly country to work in. Obviously, there's very little jurisdictional concern. We raise primarily in Canadian dollars, and we spend Canadian dollars. So there's no currency issue having to work, in U.S. dollars, for example, when you have a 30% discount to the money you're raising, right, to the money you're spending. And we have a massive land packages. We have almost 30,000 hectares of land in northwestern Ontario spread out through several projects. Our primary project, which we always like to talk about, is the McVicker project. We've been able to put together a district scale package, 12,000 hectares just alone for McVicker. We control the entire Lang Lake gold belt. It's a belt east of Red Lake and in a very prolific area. If you look at the Archean belts that stretch across this part of Canada, this is gold endowment is part of the package here. So we tick that off. One of the things that you look for in a very attractive exploration play is size. Because if you find something, and when you find something, you need to be able to demonstrate size in order to get what you want. And typically what you want is a very high evaluation and maybe a buyout, a purchase from a larger company that sees what you've got. And if you've got a postage stamp property, it's tough to do that. So with the other thing is, we have an entire belt.
And you have you called it district. It's a district scale. That you have this 12,000 hectares.
Yeah, I mean, it's massive. It is really a big piece of land. And what more importantly, all of the structural breaks, all of the sugar on the cookie in that belt, we control. So it's had very little exploration done. BHP did some work back in the 80s and in the 90s, but there hasn't been a lot of work done up in this area, and which is crazy when you think about it. And really, Red Lake had its heyday. Red Lake came back into the forefront when Great Bear Resources made their discovery. And they're actually south of Red Lake, but hey, let's not get too picky. But the reality is that these areas actually haven't been really just explored to any great degree. And so we found a nice medium between historical work that says, ooh, there might be something there. That's interesting. And then on the other side of it is, there hasn't been so much work done where you go, well, how can there possibly be something there? Because that's the nice happy medium we're in right now.
We're gonna jump into some audience questions. Actually, let's jump to the audience questions now. So so basically what Trevor is saying. Okay, so you got this great project. Everything sounds great. Massive, whatever, trillions of dollars of gold there. What has stopped companies from doing this in the past? Why did you get this project? Why didn't it? Whatever. Yeah. As new technology, LiDAR allowed this,
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and it makes a lot of sense, and it's the first question we normally get, like, why are these packages available? You have to go back to the 90s when a lot of the exploration in Northwestern, first of all, the price of gold wasn't extremely favorable, number one. Number two, these large companies like BHP, for example, were doing broad testing. They had large land packages. They were looking for base metals. They were looking for this. They were looking for that. They weren't necessarily gold focused. So a lot of the work was, cursory work. But in the 90s, there were some issues that happened in the mining space that, caused a lot of these big companies to cut and run. There was everybody remembers Bre-X, for example, which was a massive scam. And that, a lot of
that put a chill on gold for about 10 years.
It did. So a lot of these projects just fell to local prospectors or became open ground. And there they sat. And most companies come in undercapitalized. They do a little bit of work. Prospectors do a little bit of sampling, try to, gussy up the project and get a bigger company to take it or find a pubco to take it. And that's really the case here. These projects just sat. Now, the McVicker project wasn't one cohesive project. It was several projects broken up. We, since the fall of 2020, have put together a consolidated package. We made 2 or 3 or 4 acquisitions here that actually pieced together this large package like a nice puzzle. And we're happy that we did, and we think it's going to lead to something special.
Okay, and for potential buyer, an acquirer like that's more compelling.
Absolutely, 100%.
If you can show, okay, so what's the upside? In plain English, like what's the upside for this thing? Let's say, what do you have to do to get there?
Yeah. We're in we've got a very methodical, strategic approach to exploration. And I should now mention who we're working with. Our technical team is world-class, and I'm not going to, I'm sure they cringe at the accolades, but, hey, I'm in the chair and I'm going to tell you how good they are. We have a technical team. There's 2 PhDs and 2 masters on this technical team. It's led by a man named Dr. Rob Carpenter. Rob made the coffee discovery in the Yukon. It became a 5 million ounce deposit. He was the CEO of Kaminik. Kaminik was bought out by Goldcorp for $500 million. So, we're lucky that we have a guy and a team that we have with proven success. But we're moving forward in a strategy that they've identified as probably the best way to make the next big discovery. So what that entails is we're in the data compilation, review, and analysis stage. So we're picking up every piece of information that's out there. We are scouring. They are doing this work. They are scouring government databases, any kind of information on all of the projects that we have to get information that's buried, because these assessment reports and these government reports get so buried, they fall out of the public eye. So with a good team, you can go in like, CSI and go find the forensic evidence of what's at these projects. So that's what we're doing now. We're doing that, and we keep putting out these news releases. We put one out a couple of weeks ago on the Dent Jackson project. We got another one we just put out yesterday on Manitou. That on this data compilation. So that leads us to the next quarter, where we're going to begin these LiDAR surveys. And Trevor had a good question there about LiDAR. LiDAR is a geophysical survey, an airborne geophysical survey that highlights the breaks, folds, faults underneath the surface. And you need those because that's how gold deposition occurs. Gold was a fluid, moves up through these cracks closer to surface. And the more cracks you have in these areas, the greater chance of finding a lot of gold is what you've got. And essentially, if you look where there's historic gold occurrences, 9 times out of 10, those gold occurrences are coincident to these folds or breaks or faults. So LiDAR gives us that piece of that visual as to where these places are. Then we get on the ground in the warmer months, say Q2, Q3. We're on the ground doing ground reconnaissance. So we prove out some of the LiDAR results. We then therefore we'll be doing some sampling, some different type of techniques that we use on the ground to prioritize drill targets. So Q3, Q4 is all about drilling. And that's when we hope to make discovery, particularly at a project like McVicker, where we can bring a discovery to market and begin to delineate something of size. But it all follows this very methodical, strategic approach. We're not going to put holes in the ground just to put holes in the ground to generate news. So this does require patience. It requires a type of investor, not necessarily a trader. And this is how you get your 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 bagger. I mean, everybody talks about Great Bear. I was an early investor in Great Bear. I held the stock at 60 cents. And I sold it out of fatigue before it even hit $1. And I think, what is it, a $14, $15 stock? It may not be today because of the downtick, but that was a classic mistake that investors make, where you get fatigued. Cross River is a type of stock you buy, you put it down in a bottom drawer, and you let the technical team go about its business, because these people know how to make discoveries, and they've done it before, and they're excited to be working on these projects that we have now. So
basically, so what we could expect for the next, 4 or 5 months is more these kind of, targets, but the actual drilling, I guess, which is what gets investors excited, that's not going to start till what, about September, roughly?
Sometime later in 2021.
Okay, so
it's going to be when they're ready to drill. I'm the guy who says, let's drill tomorrow. But I'm not the guy who's made a 5 million ounce deposit discovery. So I'm going to let the team tell me when they are ready to put the drills down. What I like is, again, we can put a drill hole down tomorrow just to generate news, maybe get a little pop in the stock as people make the bet on the drill. But that's not why we're here. We're here to bring something significant, to have an impactful discovery. And honestly, if you made a discovery with $1,700 gold, I don't think it's the same as making a discovery with $2,100 or $2,300 gold. So I'm quite content to let this thing ride for a little bit, let the tech team do its work. We'll market the company. We'll introduce ourselves to a wide audience. And listen, we're pretty tight with 27 million shares out. Even if we've got 30, 35, or 40 out, we're still within that nice little sweet spot. And, we're going to do what we've set out to do here. Part of what investors need to do is watch us meet our milestones. We're doing what we said we were going to do. Data compilation, LiDAR surveys, ground reconnaissance, and then drilling. And we're not going to drill before the time is right.
Okay. Question from Trevor. Thanks, Alex. Is there any competition in the area that's conspicuous?
Yes.
Of CRVC accumulating all these puzzle pieces. I mean, or has it been fairly quiet?
100%. I tell you, there's different ways to measure that. First of all, we get a lot of calls from prospectors and others who have land in the area, and they know we're picking up things, so they're getting offers, we're getting deal flow. But I'll give you an example. Our Shabu project we put out some nice numbers on Shabu and historical work and things. It's a good piece. Great Bear just recently staked the ground next to us, which was a really interesting development. Why they need to expand, I don't know. They're certainly onto something very special at Dixie, but they grabbed the piece next to us. People are aware of what we're doing. And listen, we're not done maybe looking at doing other McVicker type situations elsewhere within our portfolio. We may look to consolidate ground in and around some of these other promising projects as well to build out that larger package, that district scale package we like.
Okay, so in a nutshell, you got so in terms of the Manitou project, and we got also Trevor is asking about Manitou. Okay, so basically you got this project. Why do you think it's going to yield better results than the previous guys who had it?
Right, and again, I defer to the experts, Rob and his team. They see these. They identified these projects. I don't know how many years ago. They put them into a private company called Northern Dominion Metals, and these projects met their criteria for exploration. So, as I mentioned, one of those things is size. Another thing is the historical work gives you a little hint of what may or may not be there, but not so much work has been done where you go, how can there possibly be an elephant hiding in the bushes? So what they do is they've gone through this stuff. They had their pick basically, and they accumulated this portfolio. Cross River acquired Northern Dominion Metals, the private company. That's how we got the beginning of our project portfolio. So it's already met. These projects have already met strict criteria for exploration from an expert group.
And the guy who's had, what was it, 5 million ounce finds.
Yeah, and listen, other people on that tech team have also been involved with other million ounce deposit finds as well. So it's not just Rob and his Kamenik connection. But so the reason why these things are out there is, first of all, they've had it. We're talking about a massive piece of land. Northwestern Ontario is a big area, and it just hasn't had the type of, say, Nevada exploration. Nevada is far more advanced. There's far more companies down there doing far more work over a longer period of time. That has not been the case in Northwestern Ontario. We've got years to go before Northwestern Ontario has been poked and prodded the way that Nevada has. So we're in a good place for that. You can find a 1 million ounce deposit or 2 or 3 in that area because there hasn't been a lot of attention up there. Certain areas, yes, Pickle Lake, Red Lake, but in between where we are, and on our website you can see the maps, there's a lot of ground, a lot of historical showings that hint at what's there, and you have to go in, you have to do the work, and we're doing that.
Okay, no, so it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. Okay, so to wrap up, so basically you have what's going to be kind of the milestones coming up, and so what do you have coming up next?
Yeah, what I like, the great thing about this data compilation is we had the initial work that they had put together in summaries for us when we made the acquisition of Northern Dominion Metals. Since then, since they've gone in and started doing this sort of hardcore data compilation, these little nuggets come to the surface. Oh, there's a historical drill result here we didn't know about. Oh, there's a trend here. When you put all the pieces together, there's actually a trend across this property. That's the Manitou case, for example, where there's this trend with high-grade gold stretching across a section of the property. We didn't know that when we made the acquisition here, but the data compilation is bringing these nuggets to surface. So every day I get an email from the tech team, or every couple of days, I can't wait to open it. It's like Christmas Day. What did you find, right? It's a great feeling. So that'll continue, and then we're going to get into the surveys and continue to work methodically towards that goal of impactful discovery. The only caveat is nothing's going to happen super fast to make everybody that 10 bagger next week or the week after. But if you're patient and you recognize value, and you recognize a team that has the notches on the belt, this is a great opportunity, especially when the markets are down, especially when gold is getting hammered, because nothing ever goes down forever and nothing ever goes up forever. So gold will bounce. Fundamentals are there. I know you hate fundamentals, Jack, but sentiment will come. It will come. And you're right. Sentiment is the greatest thing we have in this business. A guy like me, I can put the sail up, but I can't control the wind. If I have the sail up and the wind comes along, we're on a good ride. So that's my job.
Okay, excellent. Trevor is asking, what about financing? How's the cash situation?
Yeah, no, we're good. We've got a chunk of money in the bank. We could raise more money. I don't want to do it here. We have the work towards drilling cover, so we don't really have to raise any money until later in the year. I think it's important that we're cognizant of dilution, although I think we're a long way from letting that horse out of the barn. So we're okay for now. We have some offers on the table that we may take, but I don't want to do it in the 20s. I'd like to see us at least north of 30 cents before we take another dollar.
Okay. All right. So things are basically on track. I mean, basically people need to have some patience. So, I guess to wrap up, Alex, the question we ask now at this stage where the stock is in the 20s, top 3 reasons why investors should consider CRVC today.
Sure. It's great. If you're a momentum player, you buy at the peak. And a lot of momentum players end up being bag holders. So the best advice I can give my trading friends and my investing friends, because I'm the same way, right? I'm in there today. I'm actually buying stocks today. As stupid as that may seem to certain people, that's the best time to do it. So buy when sentiment's looking elsewhere, because you'll be the guy or the gal who benefits when sentiment comes rushing in like a wave on the beach. You'll already be holding the stock at a lower price. Number one. Number two, check the team, look at their track record, and understand. And I've said this before to you, and I've said it to anybody who'll listen. If you take 100 CEOs in the junior mining space, and you say, here's a almost 30,000 hectare land package in northwestern Ontario, here's the data, and here's a tech team like this. You can have this in your deal. Would you take it? I guarantee you 100 out of 100 will say yes. So we're in a unique position because we have all of that, and they're not going elsewhere to any great degree. So that's number two. And number three, sentiment. Just wait for it. It's coming.
I believe that. Okay, Alex, on that note, I want to thank you, and I look forward to hearing more. Hopefully, we get some big news. I guess be patient to wait till September, October for the drilling. I mean, this is
the stock almost hit 30 a couple days ago before this little dissension. So I can't tell you. Keep an eye on it. We have good support. It is relatively tight. It's been basing here in the 20s. I can see the 30s before too long here without too much effort.
Sounds good. Okay, Alex, thank you, and we'll see you in the next live stream.
Appreciate it. Have a good one. Thank you.